People are hoping for the price jump. Can you believe that? All right, folks, so some buyers truly believe this is the opportunity of the lifetime. Now, prices are down, listings are sitting, and this is the opportunity. So the most frequent question that I have received is the question, is the market at the bottom? Did we hit the bottom? And I tell them, no, we did not hit the bottom. I do not believe so. And now they get into the whole mathematical equation. Look, the prices are down by 200,000, 400,000. In this case, on this upper monitor, $500,000. We'll talk about that. And I took a $500,000 drop as an example so we can decipher it, what this looks like. And most people don't understand what it means peak to peak. And it means that the market at a point hit a peak, which was in 2022. We hit a peak. Prices started to feather down. So what is the next peak? When will we hit that number again in order to match the last peak? So we'll get into that. Every case is different and is unique. However, my biggest problem is when I'm asking the question, when I get asked the question, is this the bottom? And I say no. And then they disagree with me, let's say. They disagree. And I ask them, what are you hoping for? Let's just get into this segment. What is it you're hoping for? Yes, you're buying a property at a discounted price from a peak price. But what does this look like? Yes, you saved $500,000, which is $500,000, and we'll use this in this particular example further in the video. Now, what are you hoping for? And most people have no idea what they're hoping for. They're just hoping buying real estate will make them rich. That's the problem. And now let me try to explain all the possibilities or all the issues that I'm personally seeing and many of my colleagues that the market did not hit the bottom. So let's get into it. Interest rates. Rates are still high, not fully normalized. Millions of mortgages haven't renewed yet. And that's a pressure. Like most people will say, well, you know what, like we don't care, like it's a couple of $100. But a couple of $100 in a scheme of many couple of $100 scenarios and thousands of dollars per month, well, you can go under pretty quickly, right? Because things add up. Employment. The economy is slowing. Layoffs are starting to show. People bought based on stable income. That stable income is now being tested. And there is the big issue. I'm sure you read the news, social media, and you hear, 5,000 people laid off, fired, 300 people here, 500. Maybe you have cases in your family. Maybe you got laid off yourself. Everything adds up, right? Debt levels. Canada is still around 177% debt to income ratio. People just buy homes. They stretched to get into them. The system is already under pressure. And we know that people in the peak and even before the peak were finding creative ways to own real estate. Second mortgages, private lending, they were stretching. They were maybe doing monkey business with their income slips. Everything adds up, right? And that entire image, the picture is fake. That doesn't make any sense, right? And I obviously got asked a question. I'm like, they asked me, they're like, well, why everything is not falling? The sky is not falling. What are you talking about? And I say, well, the sky might not be falling. It probably never will fall. However, this particular case, 1.8 to 1.3 is $500,000. $500,000 off. So that buyer at that time and then the seller lost $500,000. Can you guess how long it will take to save $500,000? Just take your own calculator and try to calculate. It takes a long time, sometimes even decades, right? So inventory. Listings are rising, homes are sitting longer, buyers are hesitant, supply is increasing. We see this all the time now. This is a trend. We see it for years. So hidden debt. So we'll get into that. HELOC, second mortgages, private lending. Not all of that is showing in our data, right? The real level of risk isn't fully visible. And yes, some of these mortgages are not directly registered. They're not in the databases and whatnot. And people say, well, who has all these mortgages? How come we don't know about them, right? Well, listen, your neighbor is not going to knock on your door and say, hey, look, I have a second mortgage, third mortgage, and a private mortgage, right? People hide this information. It's personal information, all that stuff. So it doesn't matter. We don't have to get into that. But the whole point is there's a lot of debt that is hidden behind this nice looking curtain, right? So at one point it will show. Now we will get into the actual scenario of the bottom mathematical equation. What are you hoping for? So a house sells at the peak for 1.8, a few years later for 1.3. That's a loss of $500,000. So the shift, the most people look at and think the seller lost, but the real question is, why is someone buying it now? So like I ask this question all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, so that person lost $500,000. Now somebody else is getting into $1.3 million. In all honesty, I don't think that this house is worth even 1.3. Okay, so I'm scratching my head. I'm like, okay, so what kind of scenario do they have? How much money did they put down? What does this look like? Are they stretching now the current situation and what they're hoping for? So in most cases, what I hear, people are hoping for the price jump. Can you believe that? They're hoping for the market to bounce back, to boom back, to explode back, and we're gonna see double-digit growths, right? I'm like, are you kidding me? So let's just go back into the equation. So the assumption, the belief is on the idea. So let's say real estate grows 5% per year. So at a 5% per year growth, it will take this particular person buying this $1.3 million house 7 years at a 5% growth to hit the $1.8 million. Having said that, that doesn't usually work the way it does because, you know, we have so many things that we have to clear before we get to the clear path, steady progress, positive numbers, and so on and so on. So stability, no setbacks, no job losses, no forced selling, which means it has to be stable. The confidence has to be back on the table in order for us to see 5% annual growth. But let's say there's a 3% growth. It will take this person about 10 years, maybe 10 years plus in order to get to 1.8 million. So they bought today at 1.3 to reach 1.8 at 3% growth is 10 years, right? And then people are like, okay, like it's going to be a boom, right? And the biggest issue that I personally have is when people say, well, you know what? Now it's the bottom. We buy at the bottom. The original buyer or seller, they lost the top. So me buying it, I will recover that gap once again fairly quickly because the market will shift and we will see huge gains within a short period of time. I personally think do your own due diligence, do what you got to do, but I think that this is impossible in this particular environment. So I have no idea what people are hoping. you can comment below, like the video, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.